All right, guys, welcome to another episode of Close and Conquer. Different background. I got no guest. I'm doing it by myself. Couple reasons. I want to level set with what we're doing here on the podcast. Had some amazing guests on. And really what I never want to lose sight of is what are we trying to accomplish? You know, at the end of the day, like, what are we trying to accomplish? I do some other things like I do a podcast with Chris Carter, Fully Loaded. We want to challenge, educate on sports. We want to have fun. We want to entertain. We get some big name guests coming on. That's great. So it's a different platform. I hope that on Close and Conquer, we share some things that may be entertaining, but I'm really hoping it's things that make you think differently. I'm hoping it's things that you can utilize in a day-to-day. I'm hoping it's guests that I can bring on that can help you understand how you can get to where you want to get to. I think a big part of the world today that is different than when I was growing up at 18, 19, 20, when I was trying to become a businessman, was there were not podcasts. You didn't go onto social media and look things up. You know, you didn't find a man or woman doing really well and find a way to connect with them. That didn't exist. So for me, it's such an amazing tool, and I really want to talk today about the whole Close and Conquer concept with some information that I've received recently, questions people have asked me. Got a lot of questions after the podcast. You know, one of the questions I've been getting a lot lately is, you've had a lot of real estate guests on. What are your thoughts on real estate? And the first thing I respond back to people, and I say, what do you mean? Because one of the things that I scream and yell and preach and talk about and challenge is, dude, you got to get good at asking questions. So I said, what do you mean by that? What do I think about real estate? I mean, I could be talking about apartments. I'm talking about developing land. I could be talking about building out an apartment complex. I could talk about anything. Like and I can give you my opinion on whether I understand it or not. Like, I'll tell you what I believe in, because I've been in the real estate business now for 30 years. And I've seen it all. I've seen every market. I've been in about every aspect, and I've been hands-on in them. So it depends. And the guy turned back around and said, well, my question is, I'm looking to flip some properties. And then I asked a lot more questions. I really got to figure out where he's at, and I think a lot of times when people are trying to talk with people, they actually can't answer the question. They don't even know what the question is. I mean, you ever feel like you're trying to answer a question, or you asked a question and somebody answers it allegedly, and you're like, dude, that wasn't even what I was asking? I'm like, I know, but did you actually ask it? Like I shouldn't have to. I do all the time. And then I expect you to do better next time. I shouldn't have to. If I have a question, I go, hey, man. So when I started doing some real estate in New York, I said, hey, let me ask you a question. What are your thoughts on this specific area, this square block, on taking buildings? And I was very specific. Like, they're one floor, there's air rights. I had a very specific question for a guy who'd been doing it for 30 years, and he answered me. So my answer to this guy, we finally figured out, is he's trying to flip a property. He's never done one, and I'm trying to figure out not did you watch a TV show, because that's what the problem with most of those TV shows are. They're not real. That's the other thing I think you have to understand, that reality TV isn't necessarily reality TV. So I think you have to internalize that, because I think, unfortunately, is it entertainment? Is it fiction? Is it nonfiction? And I asked him how much money he had. And he said, well, in my area, he's in Florida. He's like, I probably could acquire something for $400,000 to $500,000, and I probably could put, 50 or 100 grand into it. And he said, what do you think? I said, I wouldn't do it. And he says, why not? I said, everybody's doing that. Everybody, literally. I mean, like, literally everybody. And there's actually a lot of dumb people doing it, and dumb people drive prices up. They get excited, they don't know what they're doing, and they see a property, and the one down the street sold for $850, and they're like, well, I'm going to pick this thing up, and then they end up getting it for $6, and they think it's 100 grand, and now they're into it for $210, and that's $810. Real estate commission, conveying all the taxes involved, carrying costs, they lost 140 grand, and then they're out of the real estate business, or they lost 30 grand, and they're out of the real estate business. So I said, let me tell you what my opinion is. There's a lot of other ways to make money in the real estate market. I said, what I think is the sweet spot right now, and I do it. I just did it, like I do it all the time. So I did New York. I looked at a bunch of them the other day that are home runs. I was doing a million other things. But is finding a way to get your hands on the financing and or the money, whether it's you already have the capital, you could take is acquiring something that $2 to $3 million range. Because in a lot of these areas, these higher end areas, nobody wants to do any work anyway. So most of these houses in Southern Florida where you buy them furnished. Like you buy a home and everything conveys. It wasn't like that when I was in Connecticut. But you buy a home and like everything conveys. Damn, you move in with your toothbrush. So I said, like I've looked at plenty where, I live in one. I picked on. I'm love the home, stay in it, but pick it up for $5, put $2 into it, and it's worth, $12. So, but there aren't a lot of guys and girls in that spot where they can come up with $1 million, $2, $3, put the money into it. There's an army of men and women that are willing to and can get access to $200, $300, $400, $500. And then the bigger builders, the bigger companies, the national ones, they don't pick up individual properties here and there. So like where I'm at in New York, I'm doing it's one hell of a deal. Picked it up for $3, be into it for another $3, sell it for 11 months, right? But it's behind it, there's, a 400 unit building being done. I mean, this one property, those guys walk by, and then 99.9% of people in the real estate market is too big for them to do. So I'm like, that's a sweet spot. But everybody and their brother watching TV shows wants to flip a house. I've flipped hundreds of houses. I've made a lot of money in some. I've lost a little bit of money in some. I've made a little bit of money in a lot of them. I probably have made a lot in some, lost a little bit in some, and made a little bit of money in a lot, if that makes sense. That was the majority of it. I probably popped 30 to 80 grand per transaction, which, in a couple months was not a bad deal for me. But you have to really start to understand that, like, what are you looking for? And then always separating fact from fiction, and there's so many things that I look at, and again, I think that a lot of it comes down to, do I have any passion behind it? And I think that is one of the things that people struggle with, and they try to force it. I really thoroughly enjoy real estate. I enjoy the markets I've been in. I enjoy the things I do. You go, well, as long as I make money, I don't care if I like it. I'm like, okay, dude, that's not me. Like, there's things I've done and I've not been involved and I've invested in, but I didn't have to spend my time in. If I got to get up in the morning and I got to go ahead and do something in that industry, I want to like it. I really do. I want to participate in it. So I think we really need to start thinking about all of that. We need to think about the election. I think that a lot of people, that if these are really big decisions for you, you probably want to, you don't know what's going to happen. But in November, something's going to happen. And then after the year when there's inauguration, that's going to happen. I know people get worried about, I'm not nervous about talking about politics, never have been. I think I'm like a lot of people. I vote for, I'm an entrepreneur, I'm a businessman. I have been since I graduated high school. I've been an independent guy who wants to create an income as a small business, became a large business owner, became a capitalist, into venture capitalism. Like, I did so many different things. So my policies align with the Republican Party. You might go like, mine don't. Oh, dude, I'm not arguing with you. I'm just talking to you about where I'm at. I look at the market. I look what's going to happen. I look at the corporate tax rate. I look at all these things. I don't know. There's a lot that's going to change. There's always money to be made too, though. So I don't freak out. I'm not like, oh my good God, the world's going to end. I didn't lose any sleep when Obama was elected. I voted for Trump. He got elected. I did not lose sleep when Biden was like, dude, I find markets that make sense for me, but I think about policy and I think about legislative acts. I think about those things. I don't pretend to know all of them, and I don't get on the phone and call the White House and get inside information, but common sense is common sense. So you just need to make sure as you're talking about it, you're thinking about it. Now, and I think also we unfortunately see a lot of really bad examples of leadership, and we assume that politics is leadership. Like when you look at whatever you feel or don't feel about what's happening now politically, the fact of the matter is, if you ran a convenience store with 2 aisles, you'd have more professional decorum than Biden. I mean, a dude said he wasn't going to run and did it in a 11-minute video, live stream allegedly, and didn't even tell us he was stepping. Like it's just weird. And whether you agree with him or not, I'm just saying it's just like leadership doesn't exist anymore. Just like, hey, here's why I'm doing it. I actually I would have been really good a second term. I earned it right, but hey, I'm not going to do it anymore. And have a nice night. And we just like kind of talk over people. And I think people get frustrated by that. And then there's people that are like, I don't like when people say this or say that. I don't like when they attack people. And I'm not arguing any of that. You have to figure out when you're in business, you have to figure out you have to be emotionally attached to the business, not all and a lot of people have a hard time with that. I've never had a hard time with that. Like, I just continued to work no matter what was happening. I lived through the '08 real estate deal. I lived through it. I didn't know exactly what was going to happen, but I was pretty aware something was going to happen in 6 and 7, because it was just, there were things that were happening that didn't make sense to me. People were buying homes in what they called stated loans. You didn't provide any documentation. You just told the bank or the lender or the warehouse or the mortgage company. And there were like these warehouses. Like, that's the first time I'd heard anybody talk about, like, well, that's where they're getting the money from. I'm like, that's really, it was a wild, wild west. But I knew once people could declare their income and state whatever they wanted, I knew, I was like, man, people are going to abuse this and it's going to be ugly. And there's going to be a downfall on the other side. Anytime business seems to be way too good for no reason at all, it'll be good until it's not. But I think for a lot of us, we didn't really think about that. And that's not on either side. Meaning, like, if you were to ask me, are there ways to talk to your political opponents that might bring more people in? Yeah. Do you think there are people that support Trump and go, man, maybe you said it this way? Yeah, but he's going to do what he's going to do. Kamala's going to do what she's going to do. People are they're going to be who they are for the most part, right? What you have to be deciding through the entire process is, regardless of what happens on election day and regardless of what happens post-election day, you still have a business to run, or you have a life to lead, or you have a team to run, or you have a family to take care of. So those things in which you can't control, you can't exude any emotion. And I think that's a big part to closing and conquering. I think a lot of people have the skill set. I think they have the work ethic. I think they have the intestinal fortitude, but I think they're emotional. And I think I always ask people, think about when people around you are overly emotional. Like, they stub their toe in the world end. You're like, dude, you stubbed your toe. Or they missed the elevator door. And it's like, dude, the elevator's gonna come back down in a minute. Like, we got it, or they, this customer came in and they didn't like them. And I'm like, okay, but it's, I worked as a social worker, child protective services for 14 years. I had people scream at me. I was talking to a guy the other day, he works at a place I went to, they've closed it down now. It was called Riverview Hospital. And I went in the first day I went in there, the kid, he's like 17, spit. And he tried to spit at me and he hit the worker, this guy who worked there. I was a social worker coming in from the outside. And I was like, they do that a lot? He's like, yeah. I'm like, because I was like 21. I'm like, a 17-year-old dude spits at me, he ain't gonna worry about spitting again. It's hard to spit when your jaw's busted. Like, but I realized I can't do this. I didn't have the emotional control. And I don't know that anybody ever should. I said, you guys can't put me in that situation again. My boss like, okay, well, I'm like, dude, I'm just telling you, I can't walk around where dudes spit at me. I'm just not wired that way. And by the way, I know I'm not. You have to figure out for yourself, where are those pitfalls for you? What are you not wired to do? And there's things we're all wired to do and not wired to do. So I think as we're moving through, and that's one of the things I think we're trying to get as we line up our next group of guests, is really get a lot more depth to what we're talking about too. To get really deep into figuring out why people think the way they do. Because I think a lot of people can talk about some of the success they've had, but they can't get down to brass tacks of why they've had it. Like, I was with a group the other day and I'm like, I wish I could put you through some of the things I went through when I was a kid. But I can't. But I wish I could. I wish I could put you through some of the violence. I wish I could put you through a grandfather going like, yo, like, I'm gonna shoot you, which he didn't. Shocker. But like, just obnoxiously, ridiculously, I'll point a gun at you because I think it's fun even though you're 14 years old, abusive, and I don't mean it, I mean, it allowed me to go through so much, but on the other side of that was a mother who every day of my life, and I mean every day of my life, would say, I love you. I had unconditional love, which helps you have a good self-image. Like, I don't know why they arrested me, Ma, thanks for picking me up, and while she, knew that I did something stupid. It might have been, boy, that was stupid. Boy, you don't think. Boy, what's your problem? I can't take you anymore, but I love you. But it was always, I love you. So you have to be able to go back to your growth process, your not your educational background, your how you built your social emotional IQ, where you're lacking, and then watching people. A guy said to me, "Why do you like these two guys? They both own massive businesses." I said, "Because they're on a different level." And he said, "Have you met anybody else on their level?" I said, "I've never met anybody else on the level of these two guys. Never." And I met a lot of people in my life, a lot of businessmen, a lot of very successful businessmen, but I've never met anybody like these two. And this guy's very inquisitive and he's very good at what he's doing. I'm very proud of how much he's grown and what he's doing, how much money he's making for his family. He's not even 30. But he said, "What makes them different?" And I said, number one, the way they carry themselves is elite. Their intellectual capacity is elite. The way that they make you feel like you're on the same level of them as them is elite. The uncomfortableness they allow you to sit in, the way they listen and the questions they ask, the spots they pick. Sometimes they let you talk too much. Sometimes they let you spin a little bit in the mud, and they're never off their game. I've talked to one of them 1,000 times, one of them probably 300, and neither one of them is ever off their game. Never. They're just a different level of a businessman. Doesn't mean they're a better human being. They're a different level of businessman. I don't even know that they might be inferior in a lot of ways. Other people are superior. But as businessmen, they're superior. But the last thing I told them was they have complete and utter control of their emotions. I've never seen either one of them get overly emotional, meaning their emotion was comparable to the situation they were in. Like it made sense. The level of emotion they displayed made sense for the situation. And you knew that they would have another 2 or 3, 4 gears if the situation got really where it required it. But I think it's for you to start to understand these things and really kind of figure out, success isn't complicated. You want to learn how to close and conquer close and conquer the world, close and conquer a business, great at sales, get wealthy, sell something for millions, hundreds of millions. You want to, I'm very careful with when people are like, "I want to become a billionaire." I'm like, dude, let's make 500 grand a year first. I do think that everybody that puts their mind to it in the United States of America, and depends on definition, right? But can become a millionaire. They could make $1 million a year. They could certainly get a net worth of $1 million plus. I do believe that everybody can do that because there's industries where there are duplicatable things people are already doing to make that kind of money. When people start talking about being a billionaire is when they lose me because I'm like, oh, they just want but my point is you have to understand that at the end of the day, the number one thing is the self-education you get. It's free if you listen. It's all flying through the air. All the information flies through the air. You just have to know how to grab it, but it's flying through the air. So are you open to receiving that? Will you get around somebody that will help you teach, rather? And they will help you teach, but they'll help teach you. As the information is swirling, do you have the right person by your side? Do you know how to find that person? Do you know how to get yourself close to them? How do you know what you're doing will allow you to receive the financial result that you want? And the next thing, and probably the last thing, and there's a lot of other things that would be variables, is what do you see yourself doing in that business becoming, whether it's a job, part-time business, independent contractor position, what do you see that turning into? What do you see that morphing into? And I think that's the struggle. I'm a Connecticut guy, so UConn. I can remember seeing this thing with Caron Butler when he got traded to Lakers, and he said the first time, and I know a lot of guys from the Huskies and the former coaches and the family, they're just great people, and obviously it's the most dominant basketball program collegiately in the country. Anybody argues that, you're foolish. I mean, they might damn win a third one this year, back to back to back. And ironically, Hurley was out looking at the Lakers and obviously didn't take the job and stayed with UConn, which I think is a phenomenal decision. But he said when he met Kobe just signed this massive contract, hundreds of millions of dollars. And he said to Caron, like, "Are you ready to black out?" And Caron's like, "What do you mean black out? Like, what does that mean?" And he's like, blackout. And Cron's like, all right, dude, like, I don't know what that means, but all right. So they get to practice next morning bright and early. He said that he finally learned that he would practice for, however many shots from each spot, 1,000 makes here, hours, boom. And he said, but you would practice until you started seeing spots. Like, you can see these spots. And if you've ever been like that exhausted, that dehydrated, and like those little shiny, like if you've ever been there or not, like I see them a lot when I eat mushrooms, but when you're sober and you see them, you're like, you've done too much, right? Like if I work out too much or overexert myself, I'm not hydrated, whatever it happens to be, I can feel it. Like I know it's happening, and you can see these spots. He said, then we would come back, we'd go get something to eat, a couple hours off, boom, back at it again. You can teach yourself to do that. And that's where most people get lost. Like Kobe Bryant was an exceptional basketball player. Now, if you ask me, and when we start talking about whether you care or not, I'm just giving you my definition. When you say the greatest of all time, I don't think about like who played X amount of years, who had so many championships. I mean, I get that all factors into it. I think if there's the same four dudes, and in their prime, you can add one more, like take these four dudes, every dollar of your net worth is on the line. And they're like, you have these four dudes, okay? You get to add one more, and your money's on the line. They're playing another team, as comparable talent as we can get. Who do you pick? Well, anybody that doesn't pick Michael Jordan first is lying or is not that smart, because he's a killer. He's the best basketball player that ever lived. From a scoring standpoint, defensive standpoint, like basketball is the only sport where like you on ball. It ain't like you play football where you come out for defense. You a two-way player, so that's only going to help. So you get MJ, and second to me is Kobe. You know what I mean? I think LeBron's amazing, and there's a lot of amazing players. I'm just saying, if you give me two guys on both ends of the court that would give everything they got to win, everything they got, and not to lose. Now, do I think that, so you can't get Kobe's talent, but you can get his mindset. You could do what you're doing until you are overexerted. I can go in my gym and work out until I feel like that. But I ain't playing anybody in the NBA one-on-one. Hell, I don't even like basketball, and I ain't no damn good at that either, so I'm sure as hell not going out there and doing that. But I can at least put myself through something that exerts me and challenges me physically, emotionally, and mentally. How many times over the last week, month, or year have you been challenged physically, emotionally, mentally? How many times have you challenged yourself where you're so drained you don't know whether to scream, yell, cry, put your head through the wall, quit, feel sorry for yourself? But you find a lot of commonalities in our world because our world doesn't require talent. I mean, our world of going and making money and building a business, if a professional athlete's like, how can I get better at what I do? Well, talk to somebody that's great at what you do. I don't know, dude. I never put a helmet on and ran out in front of 100,000 people with millions of people watching me on television. I've never done that. I don't know. I don't know what to tell you, bro. Like, that's a different kind of mindset. I can't walk you through that. It's always like, I was talking to a guy the other day, and I'm like, he said, well, I had a therapist. I'm like, did that guy ever go through what you went through? And he's like, no. And I was like, well, how did he have the background to explain to you the stress level you felt performing in front of that many people? Now, I don't think a therapist has to do everything everybody's done. I think that would be weird. There's no possible way that every man or woman that's therapist can have experienced everything everybody's experienced. But I do think that's a special kind of, you walk into arena, dude, if you've not done it, I don't know how you talk to it or speak at it. I think you can get academic about it, but there's academic and practicality. You got to figure out which one makes the most sense and which one's going to allow you to get better, So, but I think in our world, we do way too much of, we convince ourselves, and I see people do it every day. We convince ourselves that those people are doing things we can't do. I was just down here in the Bahamas, and one of the things I was saying, I used to come to Atlantis with my kids when they were real young, and I see all these massive yachts, and I'd be like I had my Honda Accord at home with 300,000 miles on it. The only thing I had was a plastic boat in the tub because they were young. I had no yacht, and I was like, one day I'm gonna buy myself one and park at the Atlantis. And it wasn't because I was enamored with yachts or materialistic things. I just wanted to have life experiences that I thought other people thought I couldn't have. it motivates me. That might not motivate, that motivates me. I wanted to do things. Yes, there are cool life experiences. Yes, the service seems great. Yes, it'd be nice to sleep on a yacht in Nassau de Atlantis. Like, all those things are amazing, but at the end of the day, it was more, I just wanted it because people told me I couldn't have it. But that's what's driven me my whole life. The reason I like to go to a restaurant, have the valet know who I am. I always tip everybody good. I tipped people when I was broke too. So I'm like, well, he does it now. I did it when I was broke. I tipped way too when I was broke. Way more than I should have based on what I had personally. But those are the things that motivates me. So if you're working with me, all you got to do is just be like, hey man, like, I'm willing to do this for you and I don't do this for most people. Or hey, why don't you come over here and do this? Like, you do a lot for me. I just want to be treated differently because I was always told I wouldn't be. But I knew at a young age that motivated me. And I wanted my kids to be treated, I wanted them to be treated differently as well. That's important to me. Not spoiled, not weird, and you work hard on that too. My buddy's gave me the letters John D. Rockefeller wrote to his son, amazing book. I'm trying to figure out something, like, it's amazing. But it's getting you to understand that at some point when you say, look how great so-and-so is, that's a victim mindset. And it sounds weird because you're like, well, I'm saying something nice about somebody. No, you're talking about how great they are, because then you're like, that's why I can't do it, obviously, how great they are. You can do that if there's some kind of innate talent. I think people that run a marathon in a couple hours have the ability to run. First of all, they run. They have ridiculous lung capacity. I don't think it's just like, you go, well, they have intestinal fortitude. Dude, if you don't have that lung capacity, you don't run the way they do, and your body doesn't move the way theirs does, or you're too big or too small, it doesn't matter. You can't. So, the thing with us is, the first thing you have to admit and acknowledge for yourself is that you're just like everybody else. You're just like the people that don't do nothing. You're just like the people that do a lot. We all share. You just have to decide what you're going to do. But you're no different than that homeless guy that you pass judgment on might be smarter than you. And this guy who's uber rich might be dumber than you. They might both be smart. They might both be dumb. I don't know. But there's no innate talent to go ahead and build a business in an industry that already exists. Take out the 1/10 of 1% of people that create something that hasn't been created, and they patent it, and it's proprietary, and they trademark it, and they get rich. Take them out, and for the rest of us in here, there ain't no talent, bro. And that's the problem with people. You think about people, like, if you were to ask me, who's my favorite podcast to watch? People ask me that a lot. I'm like, I love Joe Rogan's podcast. I like Jordan Peterson. He's probably my second. And Rogan is probably second or third. If I had to pick 2 or 3, it'd probably be Jordan Peterson and Rogan. And number 1 would be Theo Vaughn. And people would go like, he's mindless. I'd be like, okay. Well, the stuff he says, I like him because he seems like a genuine dude. I like people that are transparent about things. When he talks about how he should have been a better son to his father, when he talks about his life, when he's very vulnerable, I like that. Because I've always been like, dude, what you see is what you get. I'm all kinds of effed up, so I can relate. And he does such a good job of it. And then I'm like, I want to be able to communicate. I'm not a comedian, so I'm not trying to be Theo Vaughn. He's funny as shit. But I want to find a way to be able to be better from a communicative standpoint. And I think part of it too is when I look at what I'm looking for, sometimes I just want to kind of unplug and be entertained, but I'm still educated, because the stuff, he's very smart in the way he talks and carries himself, and how intentional he is, and what he does, and how he connects with people, how he draws everybody in. He's also hard to dislike. Like, if you're somebody who likes to go through comments, a lot of successful people are easy to hate and draw a lot of hate. Now, I know they don't care, and I agree, I don't care either. But imagine being at, like, having that kind of platform. And I like that he has regular people on too. I like that the mall cop gets to get on. I like that dude, may have went through his entire life and lived, in a way where, and by the way, there's zero wrong. You're not a better person because more people know you're not a worse. But I'm sure it felt pretty damn good. And all of a sudden I realized people around Theo Vaughn, who you might not think are funny, entertaining, interesting, they're all of the above. Why? He brings it out in them. And it's safe. It's an obnoxiously safe place. You have this person who has a lot of fame. I mean, let's be honest. And then you have these people that nobody knows, let's be honest, but they don't feel inferior. If you ever watch a lot of people that are really successful talk to people that would be more like your average person, whatever that means, or your average Joe, whatever the hell that even means, you know, you got to understand that it's kind of dry a lot of times because it's really not an open dialogue. They don't really, and this guy's, our girl's always trying to outshine them. And I think that's why I chose to do the Fully Loaded podcast with Chris Carter, because he's one of the best football players ever walked the face of the earth. He's probably one of the best like the dude probably could have played in the NBA legitimately, was that good a basketball talent. He could have played in the NBA. He's a Hall of Fame football player. But I like talking to him, number one, but I like the way he treats people. And I think it brings the best out in people around, whether the dude's, you know, going to get done playing high school football and play Division III, whether the dude never played ball, or whether the guy's going to be a first-round draft pick. He's just got a love for people. And when you have a love for people, you draw people to you. When you draw people to you, they want to be on your side. When they want to be on your side, they want to see you successful. And when they want to see you successful, there's a lot of love involved in that, where it's like, do I love this guy? Like, what do you love the most about a team? The best answer for me, and there's no wrong answer necessarily, but when I ask people, what did you like so much about competing athletically, is when they say, I love playing, I just love, you know, a guy the other day in a big meeting, he's like, dude, I just love being with my boys. Like, I just love, like, my favorite, I can smile right now, just remembering driving my Dodge Omni into my damn high school, and the same Dodge Omni into my JUCO when I played baseball, and the next year when I transferred and played baseball, and then got done playing baseball because I realized I wasn't going to get paid to play baseball. But those are the best times in the world, dude. Like, those are your guys. Stupid shit you say to each other, but you belong to something. Like, it's I've never been in a fraternity, and I don't know that I really want to be in one or would have wanted to be in one. I'm not going to like go old school literally and try to be in one now. But people want to belong, man. And I think you got to ask yourself, hey, do you feel like you belong? And do you feel like you make people feel like they belong? And, you know, those are things you got to start to figure out. And I think that, you know, you get a guy like Theo Vaughn, and he makes you feel like he wouldn't be the guy that would be on the side of some bully and be too weak. And he ain't kicking nobody's ass either. I mean, unless he's undercover black belt, but I've seen the way the guy moves around. I don't think he's trying to bother anybody. But I think that the most cowardly thing to do ever in your life is to exert yourself over people, and only over people you believe that you can overpower. I think treating everybody the same and maybe being more apt to challenge the people that are allegedly stronger and allegedly bigger and allegedly more connected and allegedly superior to you in some way, because you're standing and then you see them exert that over people and you don't enjoy it. That's life changing for me. And I think that you know, one of the things that you have to be proud of is when you have people like that. You know, I think that you know, I had an old coach say, you're only as good as your worst player. And I said, I don't understand that. It doesn't make any sense to me. And I'm not trying to be rude. I said, but coach, they don't play. And he said, it's not about their athletic ability. It's about a team. If a team can't treat the least athletic guy in the team, if you can't treat him like a member of the team, and you can't get him to feel good about himself, and you can't get him to feel like he belongs, and you can't do those things, that's an epic failure, man. And it always struck with me. And guess what? That dude, I don't care if he runs on the field. I don't care if he throws the water cooler and we get a 15-yard penalty. I don't care if it about costs us the game. I don't care if it costs me a damn game. I might be pissed. I might be angry. I might tell him he's an idiot. If he's that small, I ain't going to beat him up. But he's still my idiot. He's on my team, just like I'm his idiot when I make a mistake. And I think one of the things that we, as you look to scale anything or be in business with people, is what is your compassion and empathy for where they are? and you want it in return, you need to give it. And it needs to be an open place where a lot of people feel like they can't. Give me 10 guys that were told they can't do it, were pushed around at some point in time in their life, and they know now they're now part of a team. And they'll say to me, well, I'm coming to work with you, but I used to work here, and what if they bother me? I go, if they bother you, they bother me. And I don't like when people bully people. So if they're bullying you for no reason, you're not doing anything that would warrant the negative attention you're getting from them, then when they stumble out in the parking lot and think that they're picking on you, then they're picking on me too. And I enjoy the fight. I look forward to it, especially when I know I'm on the right side and I see people are bullying other people. So I think, one of the things that was, I was at, I was at this cruise line island and talking to the workers there. Cruise lines, I could tell you what they're publicly traded for. I could tell you what their EBITDA is, what they make a year. They're obnoxiously big. And then I'm like, where do y'all live? And they show us as we drive by, and then you ask them about the conditions. They're like, oh, they're horrible. They're horrible. Our conditions are horrible. And they're not complaining. When I say horrible, that's not fair. They're talking about how many people live in there, what it's like, how tight it is, how hot it is, but they're not complaining. They're just not complaining. I love when I sit in, and I was analyzing this the other day, I had a meeting, and I was like, this business is killing it. And I said, how many people on your team were born in the United States of America? And the couple's like, 0. I'm like, y'all are in trouble because I know where they're all from. They don't have to ever think, they don't have to give themselves perspective. They have it. It's in here. It's already here. Every day they go to do something, they know how they grew up. They know what it's like outside this country. They know what they could be doing. They know how bad it is. They know how little they could be making. They know the conditions they can be living in. They know how they can be treated. So how do you replicate that? I mean, Kobe Bryant wasn't born in that. He didn't pretend he was either. Family, they weren't broke. He wasn't on the side of the street in an area getting shot at growing up. I don't think people were selling crack outside his house. He didn't have that story. He didn't. You don't need that story. That idea of where is he from or where's she from? No, it's what do they internalize that they want and they can overcome in the situations they put themselves in. That's part of your requirement. I don't know a lot about coaching, but I know coaching kids growing up athletically, the best thing I ever did was put them in positions I was sure they were going to lose. We were going to play people, and there was no doubt in my mind because they were so superior to us, age, strength. And when the moms and dads went, they should check the birth certificates. I go, if your kid's any good and he plays varsity as a freshman, he's going to play kids 4 to 5 years older than him. So why don't you stop making excuses for little Tommy? He'll be fine. They're grown men. Yup, and your son hadn't gone through puberty yet. What a great opportunity to compete against a grown man. And you know what your son's going to learn? What it feels like to be down 30. Because he's going to be up 30 a lot because he's going to play local, and local rec, local school stuff a lot of times sucks. So you don't even know what it feels like. If you've never lost, you don't know how to deal with loss. If you've never had loss, you don't know how to deal with loss. So you need to put yourself in that position as a businessman or businesswoman in your everyday life. So we're going to hone in a lot more on that at Close and Conquer. Also, anything y'all want to talk about, we're going to have more guests that you've heard of. We're going to have some really big names. And we're going to have some people that maybe you ain't heard of. And I'm not going to be as good as Theo Vaughn at it, but we're going to work hard at it because we're going to continue to create something that makes a difference in your life, that should be funny, should be challenging, should make you uncomfortable. You should go, man, I like what he said. I hate what he said. But at least you know where I'm coming from and what we're trying to accomplish here in Close and Conquer. It's important to me because it'll make a difference. And if one person, let alone 100 or 1,000 in a week, is like, man, I did this and it made a difference in my life. I did this. I was thinking about a guy the other day I've known since he was 18 years of age. And every time I think about his kids, because he said, I'll never have kids. I'm never going to get married. Why would I do that? Yada, yada. I can't afford it. And I think about how much money he's made. He's done the work. I just showed him the blueprint. And I look at 2 human beings that wouldn't be here, according to him, if he hadn't made money. And he's like, I don't know what else I would have done to make money. I don't think I would have ever done. I would have never met my wife. I wouldn't have these kids. And now eventually they'll probably have some kids. And now you have all these other people that are going to be on the face of the earth because there was an opportunity presented to him. because I didn't give up on him because everybody else had said he wasn't. He had a college coach who was like, oh, I would pass on him. And I was like, dude, you're a Division I baseball coach. You never played baseball. You're like this tall. Like, why would I listen to you? Well, like, you don't like him. I like him even more. Well, these are things that happen in his life. Oh, he made some mistakes. Must be nice to be a Division I baseball coach, never played baseball in your life. So, which I'm not mad at you. Good for you. Like, you make some money, guy. I'm mad at you at all. But I'd stop dogging him. And then when this young man made a bunch of money, he's like, man, I should bring him in. And, oh, because now he can donate to your university. And I told the kid, donate. That's the great, donate. If you believe, donate, dude. Because you showed everybody not to judge a book by its cover. So hopefully more of y'all do that. Like, subscribe, share, get Close and Conquer out. We are going to make a difference in people's lives. We'll talk to y'all soon. Thanks for your time today. I appreciate it.